When an RFP or a tender lands in your inbox, how does your team react? I bet it's usually with a bit of excitement. Oh, look, somebody likes us. They want to buy from us. It feels like an opportunity, doesn't it? Customer want to talk. They've reached out. There's something for us to go after. Right. Here's the uncomfortable truth. By the time that RFP exists, most of the important decisions have already been made. No, people hate to hear this, but it's true.
You're listening to the Sales Today podcast, and I'm your host, Fred Copestake. On this podcast, we explore how sales professionals can develop a modern approach to winning business, the application of virtual selling techniques, how to create meaningful business relationships, and much more. Why not take our free collaborative selling scorecard to see how your sales approach suits today's environment? You'll find a link in the show notes.
We tend to treat RFPs as the start of the sales process. But from the customer's perspective, it's much further along. Before that document is written, they've gone through a whole load of thinking. Something has triggered the need. They've discussed it internally. They've explored possible approaches. They've started to shape what the solution might look like for them. And what's really important here is that they've begun to define what good looks like to them. So by the time you're invited to respond, a lot has already been set. The problem has been defined, the structure of the solution has been thought through, the criteria that the proposals will be judged against have started to be defined as well. And sometimes even a preferred direction. Sometimes, actually most times maybe. Which means that you're not entering a blank canvas. You're stepping into a framework that's already been built. This is where the pressure starts to build. Because if the criteria are already defined and you didn't help shape them, then your ability to differentiate becomes limited. Conversations shift. It's not one about understanding what they're trying to do. It's about comparison. It's not about the value that they're trying to extract, the stuff that we want to talk about. Sales, training, sales, best practice is talked about forever. It's not about the value, it's about the price. They want to talk about price. And that's where your margins start to get squeezed. And it isn't because your solution's lacking value, it's because you're being evaluated in a structure that you didn't influence. So this approach, it is very common. Many engineering businesses, a large part of the pipeline is driven by tenders. It feels normal. It feels like, well, that's just how it works. That's what we do around here. This is what goes on in our industry. And yeah, look, to an extent, it is. But it's the least controllable part of the process. Because you're reacting. You're not influencing. However much you think, you're not really influencing. You're participating in it rather than shaping it. So the real opportunity sits earlier. It's before the RFP is even written. It's when the customer is still defining the problem, exploring the options, making sense of what they actually need. That's where your conversations can have real impact. Salesperson as sense maker, because that's where you can help shape the thinking. When you do that, the structure you'll eventually respond to looks very different. Actually, you could argue it looks very similar because you know what it looks like. So really, look, the next time an RFP lands, it's worth pausing for a moment. It's worth not asking, well, how do we win this? Instead, asking and being realistic about how early were we in this process? Because the answer to that question is often going to be the one that explains the outcome. So look, if you're listening to this and thinking, yeah, all right, yeah, we're spending a lot of time on tenders, it's worth stepping back and understanding how much of your pipeline based on that is truly influenceable. I just made a word up. Hey, look, you know what I mean. Can you influence that? Look, there's a simple collaborative selling scorecard below. That can help you assess some of the sales behaviors and some of the best practice that will get you in a better position to deal with this whole way of operating. Have a look at it.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Today podcast with me, your host, Fred Copestake. I hope you've enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please get in touch and hit subscribe. And remember, you can take the collaborative selling scorecard for free to check out how your sales approach works in today's environment. You'll find it in the show notes.